Anthropic just nuked the open source AI ecosystem, and developers are absolutely losing their minds. At noon Pacific on Friday, Anthropic dropped a bomb on the developer community that nobody saw coming. Claude subscribers can no longer use their subscription limits for third-party harnesses like OpenClaw. You have to pay separately via pay-as-you-go pricing, and honestly, the numbers are just brutal. Boris Cherny, head of Claude Code, tried to spin as a technical necessity, saying subscriptions weren't built for the usage patterns of these third-party tools. But here's what he's really saying. These open source tools were too good at giving developers affordable access to Claude. The OpenClaw creator, who ironically joined OpenAI in February, called this a betrayal of open source developers. And you know what? I think he might be right. Because we're talking about cost increases of up to 50 times what developers are paying before. 50 times. Let that sink in. The Hacker News thread on this absolutely exploded. Developers are furious, and I get it. You build your workflow around these affordable access to Claude through these open source tools, and suddenly Anthropic pulls the rug out from under you. This isn't just a pricing change, this is a platform lock-in tactics disguised as resource management. But here's the thing though, Anthropic is offering some damage control. One-time credits equal to 1 month's plan price, redeemable until April the 17th. Plus, pre-purchase bundles up to 30% discount. Classic move, create the problem, then sell the solution at a discount. So what does this actually mean? The economics of building on Claude just fundamentally changed overnight, and every other AI company is watching to see if they can get away with the same move. This OpenClaw situation gets even more interesting when you follow the money. VentureBeat reports that investors actually lobbied Anthropic to delay this change, but only managed to score a 1-week extension. Think about that for a second. Even Anthropic's own backers knew this would be a disaster from the ecosystem, but Anthropic pushed it through anyway. That tells you everything you need to know about how desperate they are to protect their margins. The company is clearly feeling the pressure to justify their massive valuation. And apparently, burning bridges with the developer community is an acceptable trade-off. And if you haven't seen my OpenAI videos on A, killing Sora, and B, just burning through crazy amounts of dollars, in the billions, I will put that above and also link it in the descriptions below, so check that one out as well. Okay, a new launch. The Next Web is reporting that this change doesn't affect just OpenClaw users, it also hits Paperclip users, which uses Claude codes and adaptive layer, so we're looking at collateral damage across multiple tools in the ecosystem. Anthropic basically took a sledgehammer to the entire third-party tooling space around Claude, and they're acting like this is just a minor policy adjustment. The scope of this is massive. I don't think people realise how many workflows just got completely disrupted. And again, if you haven't seen my Paperclip video, I'll link that in the description above and below. Check that out of how I use Paperclip with Claude doing this exact thing. So it'll be interesting to see how my Paperclip carries on working once this kind of extension's finished and if I have to pay extra, that sort of stuff. So yeah, time will tell with Paperclip on if it still gets used by me. I don't know yet. We'll see how it goes. Okay, on to some policy. Benzinga is covering the regulatory implications here, and this is where it gets really wild. Anthropic is essentially changing the terms of service for existing subscribers mid-contract. You pay for unlimited access to Claude through your subscriptions, and now they're saying, actually, that only applies to use our interface. Does anyone else find this completely wild? This could set a precedent on how AI companies can retroactively limit access to their models. If Anthropic gets away with this, every other AI company is going to try and do the same move. Onto some numbers. The cost math on this is absolutely insane. Geeky Gadgets broke down what developers are actually facing. Some users who are paying $20 a month for Claude Pro are now looking at bills of over $1,000 for the same usage through pay-as-you-go pricing. That's not a price increase, that's economic warfare against the open source ecosystem. And here's the kicker, Anthropic knew this would happen. They had the usage data, they knew exactly how much this would hurt developers, and they did it anyway. I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones. I have not actually jumped on the OpenClaw bandwagon. Although I've debated it a few times, I've used Claude Code on max plan. So I'm not feeling the effects of this quite yet, but hopefully that stays that way. If not, we'll make a judgment call on what's next. So the executive messaging around this has been absolutely tone deaf. Boris Cherny's statement about subscriptions not being built for the usage patterns is corporate speak for, we didn't expect open source tools to be this good at arbitraging our pricing. Quick thing before we go deeper. If you're enjoying this content, please do me a massive favour and hit that like and subscribe button. I'm only a small channel covering everything AI, robotics and the future of tech, and every subscriber that we get really counts for us. But here's what nobody's talking about. This move pushes developers straight into the arms of OpenAI and other competitors. Anthropic just handed their biggest rivals a massive gift. Smart developers are already migrating their workflows away from Claude. That's not just lost revenue, that's lost mindshare in the developer community. And again, if you've not checked out my Anthropic is eating OpenAI video, I will put that again above and below. Check that one out. Anthropic's taken a huge chunk of market share away from OpenAI and Gemini. So it'd be interesting to see what happens after this kind of plays out. This is the one thing that you need to know today. Everyone's covering this as a pricing story or a developer relations disaster, but they're missing the real signal here. This is the beginning of the end of the OpenAI model ecosystem as we know it. Look at this timeline. OpenClaw's creator joined OpenAI in February. Anthropic kills OpenClaw access in April. That's not a coincidence. That is competitive warfare disguised as resource management. Anthropic isn't just protecting their margins, they're trying to kill the tools that make it easy to switch between AI providers. But here's the thing that everyone's missing. This strategy is going to backfire spectacularly because the open source community doesn't just build tools, they build ecosystems. And when you attack the ecosystem fights back. We're already seeing it. Developers are building Claude compatible interfaces for other models. They're creating wrapper APIs and they're switching providers seamlessly. Anthropic thought they could force lock-in by breaking third-party access. They actually just accelerated commoditization of large language models. The real winner here, OpenAI. They get to position themselves as the developer-friendly alternative while Anthropic looks like a corporate villain. And with Claude's creator now working at OpenAI, I mean, come on, this couldn't have been played out better for them even if they planned it. The signal isn't that Anthropic is getting greedy. The signal is that AI are entering a new phase where ecosystem control matters more than quality. And companies that attack their own ecosystem don't survive. That's your dispatch. Anthropic burns bridges with developers for short-term revenue. Investors couldn't stop the train wreck. And the open source community is already building tools to root around the damage. Classic case of winning the battle but losing the war. We're back tomorrow with what's moving next. Hit subscribe if you want the intelligence that matters, not just the headlines that everyone else is chasing.